In the medical world, your notes do so much more than just track a patient's health. In some cases, they become the absolute bedrock of a criminal investigation, a piece of evidence that can literally define the course of justice. So today, we're going to break down the essentials of forensic documentation, how to create records that aren't just medically sound, but legally unbreakable.
The stakes? Well, they couldn't be higher. This quote says it all, doesn't it? The notes you write in a clinic or an emergency room can become the single most powerful piece of evidence in a courtroom. Your clarity and your accuracy, that can be the deciding factor between a just outcome and a total failure of the legal process.
So, how do you make sure your records can actually withstand the intense scrutiny of a legal battle? Well, it all starts with a core set of principles. I want you to think of these as the foundation, the solid ground that every single court-ready document is built on.
Okay, let's get into the nitty-gritty. Think of these as the 6 pillars holding up your documentation. First, you have to be objective. That means describing what you see, not what you think it means. Next, your notes have to be sequential, telling a clear chronological story. Accuracy, of course, is non-negotiable, and that means 0 assumptions. And finally, the last 2 are huge. You've got to write it immediately, and it has to be completely tamper-proof. Trust me, courts will look at every timestamp, every correction, every single gap.
So what do these principles actually look like in the real world? Let's apply them to 2 of the most critical and honestly most difficult medical legal scenarios you might face: documenting general injuries and conducting sexual assault examinations.
Now here's something that's really fascinating: the legal definition of injury in India. Under the Indian Penal Code, or IPC, an injury isn't just a physical wound. It's way broader than a clinical diagnosis. It actually covers harm to a person's mind, their reputation, or even their property. Understanding this is vital because it really defines the full scope of what you need to be looking for in documenting. And this table just perfectly illustrates the level of detail we're talking about. Vague descriptions like a large bruise on the arm just won't cut it in court. You have to be precise. The exact type, the size and metric units, length, width, depth, the location measured from fixed anatomical landmarks. Documenting patterns is incredibly important too. And if you take photos, they have to include a scale and identifying information to even be considered valid evidence.
All right, let's shift gears now to what is without a doubt the most sensitive and intensely scrutinized area of forensic medicine. Documenting sexual assault cases demands not just technical precision, but also a trauma-informed approach that puts the survivor's dignity and psychological safety first.
This right here is so important. What you write and what you don't write can make or break a case. So on the do side, always document the survivor's own words in quotation marks. Note every single injury, genital and non-genital, and you must get specific written consent. Now the don'ts, these are absolute hard lines. You never use judgmental language, never comment on character, and absolutely never ever perform or even mention the 2-finger test. It's explicitly banned by the Supreme Court. Getting these wrong isn't just bad practice, it can completely invalidate your evidence and re-traumatize the survivor.
Okay, so you've documented everything perfectly. What's next? Well, the next critical phase is all about protecting the legal integrity of the physical evidence itself. And we do this through something called the chain of custody.
So what is the chain of custody? Think of it as the evidence's life story. It is the unbroken, documented trail that proves the sample shown in court is the exact same one collected from the patient, and that its integrity is intact. If this chain has even one broken link, the evidence, no matter how compelling it is, becomes legally worthless.
And look, create an unbreakable chain really comes down to these 4 simple but totally non-negotiable steps. 1. Label every single sample meticulously. 2. Seal it in a tamper-proof container. 3. Sign your name right across that seal. And 4. Log the handover and get a signature from the police officer who receives it. Every single step must be documented, no exceptions.
All right, in our final section, let's focus on the practical pitfalls. All of your careful work, all that detail, it can be undone by simple, avoidable mistakes. So, making sure your documentation passes the courtroom test means being super vigilant about these common errors.
This is really the ultimate question, isn't it? It's not just about being medically correct, it's about being legally resilient. Every single detail, from a label on a vial to a signature in a logbook, will be challenged. So let's look at the exact mistakes that defense attorneys are trained to hunt for.
Every single item on this list is a potential case-ending error. An unsealed packet? That suggests tampering. A missing signature? That breaks the trail of custody. Mismatched dates? That creates doubt. Each of these little administrative slips is a fatal flaw in a legal context. It's an open door to discredit the evidence and potentially collapse the entire case.
It's also so important to be aware of the specific legal landscape in India. The POCSO Act, that's the Protection of Children from Sexual Offenses Act, it makes reporting suspected child abuse mandatory. You also have to inform the police in sexual assault cases, but you can't delay treatment to do it. And look, if you need to correct a record, never, ever use whiteout. A single line through the air with your signature and the date is the only legally acceptable way.
Let this be your guiding principle. Just assume that every single note you take, every observation you record, is a public and permanent statement that will be read out loud. Write with the kind of clarity and objectivity of someone who knows their words will be examined under oath, because one day they very well might be.
So what's the big takeaway here? It's this. Your role in these situations is not to solve a crime. You are not an investigator. You are an impartial, meticulous custodian of evidence. Your accuracy, your attention to detail, it isn't just a component of good medical practice. It is the very foundation upon which justice is built.